Hello and welcome to Hair in the Hawthorn. My name's Kate Ray and I'm one of your hosts. So we've had a crazy time trying to get on this evening, and Pixies have been at work, and that will give you a flavour of this evening's guest. I'm going to hand you over in my flustered state, having wrestled with technology, to my co-host Neil Rushton to introduce our guest this evening. Hi everybody.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, we're delighted to have the wonderful Claire Casely on with us tonight. And well, we're going to be talking about various things, including her own podcast and her new book that's coming out. But perhaps, Claire, I mean, I've known you for a couple of years, I think, and I've always been very impressed with the way you approach the fairy phenomena. And we'll come back to fairies versus pixies later on, but yes. We'll leave that to one side. Let's just for the moment say that they're the same thing. And so I'd just like to ask you, we're limited for time, so if you could just give a very brief introduction of basically why, I mean, how did you become interested in the fairy phenomena, and then maybe take that on to how you set up your great site, the Fairy Whisperer. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Okay, so briefly, I've always felt a connection with the other world since I was a child, but it's only really in later years, since I went to university really. When I came back from there, I just started to draw fairies more and more. I'm an artist as well. And yeah, just started to draw fairies a lot, and they were just pouring out of me. Always felt a connection with Dartmoor and the folklore there. I have ancestral connections with Dartmoor, and kept going back to fairies over the years and being drawn away by various things. And then at 2016, I joined a little group that was dedicated to working with fairies. I just declared then that this was my path. And then from that point, things just opened up more and more to me. The fairy realm just opened up more and more for me. That was part of my well-being as well. Moving from corporate world into working more with my creativity and coaching, healing modalities, all that kind of thing, and connecting with nature. So yeah, and realizing that this is my path. And I set up the Fairy Whispering group on Facebook because I wanted to share my experiences that I was having. Not only the fairy experiences, but the impact that connecting with nature was having on my well-being, and also a passion for Dartmoor and beautiful places. Yep. And I wanted other people to share their experiences as well. So it's just like a community where people could feel safe to share the places that they connect with and anything about fairies. So rather than, I do like the sparkly side of fairy belief. I'm not averse to dressing up as a fairy at festivals and things, but I'm more interested in the real, what fairies really are, and how I've experienced them. Yeah.
So, that's, I mean, the Fairy Whisperer site on Facebook, I recommend all viewers go and find this on Facebook. Easy to find. I think it's an open group, isn't it?
It's a private group, so
you can find it.
You can find it, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of those groups. There are a few on Facebook I found, such as Joe Hickey Hall's the Modern Fairy Sightings, which are a very, as you say, very supportive group, and really interesting for bringing people together from all sorts of different backgrounds who might otherwise not been a little bit afraid to talk about these kind of things. So that's a nice segue to go on to your other current project, which is it's I'm forgetting the name of it. It's Weird Wonderful Wonders, isn't it?
Yes, Weird Wonderful Wonders. Yeah.
Can I just jump in there, because I can't. There's two bits out of what you've just said that I really can't leave at that. One of them is when you do talk as a fellow artist, when you talk to other artists about when you get this. It's almost like a purging sensation, isn't it? That you just carry on sort of churning out the same kind of artistic theme. Do you feel as though that was a fairy channeling? So the Fae world sort of coming through you and saying, we need to be seen. Okay, so in the same way, was that, I mean, for a lot of people, when they say, and I found myself on this path, most people would say about that, and I don't know whether it's the same for you, that they found themselves on a fairy path because they felt like they were put there, not by a conscious choice. It was almost, can you remember, was there a significant moment that kind of where you went, this is it, this is where I'm at?
Yeah, I think so I can think about my early childhood, which was, I spent a lot of time outside, but really it was when I was at university. I was in Swansea and spending time on the Gower Peninsula, and the whole theme of my degree show was to do with this feeling about melding with the landscape. I wanted to try and convey how I felt in connection with the spirit of the landscape through my art. But my degree, I just felt a bit pent up, like I wasn't expressing really what I wanted to express. And so it just all came out of me. I did have a fairy experience when I was at university, which was connected to taking substances.
Many guests on here.
That's absolutely no problem with that, Claire. Don't you worry about that. We're all into taking substances as a tool to help us reach where we need to go.
As you do when you're a student. And so I was lying in bed in my room one night after a night out, and I had this really clear, I had a rubber plant next to my bed. Pot plant next to my bed, and I looked over and there was like this little being sat in the rubber plant, and it's like I couldn't not see it. So
what did it look like?
It was like a typical sort of elf, kind of little elf person, just sort of sat with his knees up on one of the leaf or branches that goes to the leaf, just looking out at me.
Was it just visual, or was there audio? Did it communicate with you?
I think it just communicated through its expression.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking at me curiously, as if to sort of say, "Oh, you can see me."
That's so interesting, isn't it? It's I mean, the way you describe it as, you know, a typical elf, you probably knew a little bit about the folklore. Kate and I have talked about this so many times, in that our expectations or our predispositions to what we might see, wherever it's coming from, whatever entity it really is, it will probably appear to the person observing it in line with their expectations, and I think that's definitely a thing, and that, you know, that's a typical example of it, and so interesting. So you were what, 20 or so when that happened?
Yeah, I would have been finished my degree in 1995, so yeah, maybe about 21, 22.
Yeah, interesting.
And the Gower Peninsula has lots of fairy lore, unusual things happening on it as well.
Yep.
That I heard about when I was there. And then, but when I came home, it's almost like there was something that I just needed to get out and I just started drawing and drawing. I went back to live with my mom. The pressure of doing my degree was off my shoulders, and I was just drawing for pleasure again. And all these fairy beings started to come out onto the page. And I realized that it was bringing me happiness to do that. And it was when the times when I went away from my creativity and thought, oh, I've got to get some, really high paid career, and I was miserable. So it's always, I've always coming back to nature and my creativity or music. It's always been the time when I've reconnected with the subtle realms. Yeah.
Well, this really comes back. So did you have another point to raise there, Kate? Or?
Probably about 1,000,001, but I'm mindful of time, and I do want to hear about this project, so I'm excited.
Well, we have two projects to talk about with Claire. The first is the Weird Wonderful Wanders, which I love the way you do this. But I mean, you can talk about it now, but you basically walk out. They're all on Dartmoor, aren't they?
So far, yes, they've mostly been on Dartmoor.
Well, go ahead. Tell us why you set this project up, and maybe describe how you do it and why you're doing it.
So I started at the beginning of this year. I just had this kind of vision, if you like, come to me, that I thought I'd really like to just capture people's. So I've been researching about Pixie folklore. I thought there's people out there with lots of stories about the landscape or unusual experiences. So my focus is more to do with the extraordinary experiences people have connected with the landscape. So that could be walking with somebody that knows about a story. For example, the Skeleton mystery, which was a UFO that landed in a field on the edge of Dartmoor that somebody had an experience with, a man called Arthur Bryant in the 1960s. Or I've just actually, my next episode comes out tonight, which is Walking and Talking with Jo Higgy Hall on Dartmoor. And we were walking and talking about the Pixie project that she did for the book Magical Folk, which came out that 2016. So it's interesting whenever I do these episodes as well. There's always, well, not always, but a lot of the episodes, we have interesting experiences while we're recording the episodes. So for this one with Jo, I captured an EVP of a woman singing.
Wow. In
the background while we were talking.
Just describe for people who don't know what an EVP is.
So it's an electronic voice phenomena, which I only know about because I watch paranormal shows. And I've, didn't set out to capture one. But I was listening back, I was editing, I was like, there's a woman singing. She was humming, actually. So it's not words, she's humming in the background as we're talking. And the strange thing is that it connects with another episode I did, episode 3, where I was talking with a friend, another part of Dartmoor. She played her flute. And after she played her flute, I heard a woman humming in the background. So it's almost like that experience that I captured with Jo, the EVP, was almost like confirmation of the other one. So, and now I'm like, who is this woman that's following me around?
This wasn't in the same location though?
Different location.
Right. Okay, can I jump in there, because EVPs from a paranormal perspective are something that I work with on a regular basis, going out sort of doing ghost hunts, and it would be interesting if you were to do a normal EVP session, just to get a voice recorder, ask out into the ether and see what you get back. Because my first and initial thoughts are, this person or being isn't with the landscape, they're with you. That there's somebody with you who want to be recognised as part of what you're doing. And it sounds to me like it's almost a confirmation of what you're doing is something that's beautiful and good in the world, you know, and they want to be part of it. So
yeah, like I've heard her at home as well.
mm-hmm.
And I've composed music. So for episode 3, I composed some music from hearing her.
Wow,
so,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so like you say, it feels like this person wants to be, or fairy being maybe, wants to be recognized. Yeah.
I don't know, that it's crazy, the crossover there, just the very subtle crossover. What this channel was originally about was about, you know, introducing to the paranormal community that there are other energies that are not necessarily the spirits of the dead. And there are rafts of them in all different forms, and will communicate in various different ways. And here we are, you know, sat down to talk about Pixies and Dartmoor, and we have very clearly that correlation between that. So that's brilliant for me. Thank you.
That's okay. So yeah, that's what Weird Wonderful Wonders is.
And are you going to continue that into the future, or is that sort of set project?
I've decided I'm going to do it for this year.
Yeah.
See how, you know, if interest grows, you know, opening up my own community, because I could see books coming from that. And it, you know, I'm passionate about it. I love talking to people. I used to be a life coach. That was my business before, you know, pandemic changed everything. And so I love hearing people's stories. And one of the reasons I did this was because I found that when I was coaching people, they quite often come up with an extraordinary experience they'd had because of the kind of coaching I was doing, sort of more on a spiritual sort of level. And I thought, gosh, that's so interesting. And so many people have had experiences of children related to places. So yeah, it's interesting that all these places have these stories, and you know, the folklore that comes from these places as well. That you know, there's so many layers, isn't there, in the landscape of people's experience.
That's always something that's really interested me. You know, how do we connect like modern experiences as in our contemporary world to that of the folklore? And well, I'll come on to your book in a moment. But it's a case of the folklore, I always find, has a certain layer on top of it. Sometimes there's a morality to it. Sometimes it's become expanded into a story. That's even if it's just an anecdote in the folklore. Whereas the modern, more contemporary encounters and experiences tend to be kind of, wow, this happened. There's no morals or nothing overlaid on top of it. Do you think that's right, or do you think there's a closer connection between now and then?
I think it's a mix. So with the Victorian folk tales that were written down Victorian times, there's definitely a morality to them. But then underneath that, I think, especially related to Dartmoor, there's truths there that go back a long time, you know, to when people were using the tools on Dartmoor, granite outcrops there as places of worship. And then, you know, the church came in and said, you can't go to that place because that's where the devil resides or the Pixies reside. So there's that. And then there's maybe a bit of gossip and superstition. But then also in that, there's people's actual experiences of otherworldly beings, whether that's, you know, whatever that is, spirits or fairies or so yeah, it's hard to pull out the strands of so many strands on that.
Well, that's a perfect way to segue into you know, really want to talk about your book before we run out. How much time have we got left, Kate?
I'm not being counted down yet, so we're doing well.
Great. So your book, I don't actually know what you're going to call it. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's just Claire's Pixie Book.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll think of a better name than that. But have you thought of a title for it yet?
I've thought of various titles. Yeah, Pixies of Dartmoor, something like that. But I don't want to make it too specific to Dartmoor because there's other places in Devon as well. So it'd be mainly Dartmoor and some of the areas of Devon that have Pixie folklore as well. I'm just sticking with Devon because, of course, Cornwall has tons of Pixie folklore, and I just wanted to try and narrow it down and keep it very specific to this area and to places that I know and that I could visit, because to me it's really important to be able to go to those places myself. So there's a writer called William Crossing who wrote Tales of the Dartmoor Pixies in 1890. He was a rationalist. However, he went around with his notebook and pen, and he actually spoke to people and wrote down these stories. So he was really, about speaking to the people and getting the stories direct from the horse's mouth. And he actually did have a pixie experience himself, which he does talk about later on in a magazine article that he did, where when he was a boy, he went to a place called the Pixies Cave, which is on Sheep's Tor. I think he was about 6 at the time, really excited about going. And as they approached with his woman that was looking after him, he saw something come out of the cave, or dart into the cave, I think it was. And he was really excited because I thought, I've seen a pixie. And the adult he was with said, oh, it's probably just a rabbit.
Yeah.
So, it's almost like he was almost hinting that he had this experience, but then is quickly dismissed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
a lot of those Victorian 19th century folklorists were quite rationalist, weren't they? They were more interested in, oh well, these are interesting stories, but of course it's all a load of nonsense. I think only when W.Y. Evans Vence in the early 20th century went collecting, he believed he was on their side. But no, that's really interesting. So you're going through, you're collecting the folklore, what you can from say 19th and the 20th century, but you're also bringing it up to date, aren't you, in terms of contemporary?
With my own experiences with pixies. So I keep, just quickly show you, I keep loads of, I'm keeping these journals, like got loads of them that I decorate myself.
That looks great. That looks great.
And since about 2016, I've got about 8 these hard black books that I just wrote down everything. And 2016, I was at Wistman's Wood.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And I found, I'll tell you a story actually. I felt I was led there. So I'd created this journal and I thought, well, I'm going to start writing down my experiences. And then I felt the urge to go to Wistman's Wood, which is quite a drive from here. And as I was walking towards it, I could hear laughter. And I felt that I felt led by this laughter. And I walked around to the very end of the wood. And there's this beautiful standing stone there. It's called the Druid Stone. Do you know it? Yeah. And I can show you a painting that I did of it actually. So here we go. So
that's lovely.
Oh wow.
Druid Stone. Yeah. And then the tree behind it kind of forms a bit of an archway, like a big oak tree. It forms a bit of an archway with other trees. And I took some photos while I was there and I posted them online. and somebody said, oh, I can see a little person in the tree above the stone. Well, I saw this little figure and I thought, oh my goodness, because I thought back to earlier on in the day when I'd been there and I'd asked permission to go in. And I felt the response, well, first you have to do something for us, before you come in. So I looked around and somebody had left some rubbish behind the stone. So I picked it up. I brought a bin bag with me. I usually carry something. I picked up this trash and I said, well, can I come in now? And they said, yes, you can come in. And I spent some time there drawing. And then, so this little figure, what I could see in the tree looked like it was pointing to where this trash was. That was that was the strange thing. But well, that's a bit of a coincidence. If this is just pareidolia or whatever, then why does it look like it's pointing to where the rubbish was?
Yeah.
So I drawn him. Do you want to see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did a painting of him. Now this is a bit of a, I would say a bit more of a sort of painterly, nicer version of him. I call him Malachite. But as I originally saw him, it was a bit scary actually, and I thought, oh, I don't know if I like that version. But I think in my experience, the way fairies look, they do look a bit scary.
Yeah, they can definitely. Do you ever feel as though that you have? They're absolutely stunning. They're lovely.
That's great. That's really good.
Do you ever feel as though the energy is sort of attached to you, or come home with you? Have you ever had any sort of weird phenomena go off that you can attribute to that?
Yeah. So definitely with that, I think once we connect with an energy, fairies, they can come home with you.
Yeah.
And he definitely came home with me because I started to see, and it wasn't a nasty thing. It was just like, I'm here, I see like a shadow on my wall. Or I went camping with my children a few years ago in Wiltshire, and we were out and we could see, like, it was a full moon. We went for a full moon walk across the camping field we were in, and in the hedge we could see like it was a silhouette of this fairy. So yeah, I mean, definitely with children as well, they attract fairies. And I've heard the other thing that happened was I had a fairy doll that my sister gave me a few years ago, and I had it in my bedroom. And I didn't put two and two together because shortly after having this door in my bedroom, I started to hear knocking.
Yeah.
And it'd be quite loud. I'd be woken up, and one night I heard it was like a door, like a hinge opening. I thought that sounds like something I thought it was somebody opening the cupboard doors in the kitchen. And then I heard a doorbell ringing another night, and I suddenly realized it's that fairy door.
Yeah.
And I moved it out of my bedroom. I put some crystals on because it's got steps that come down from it. I put some crystals on the steps. I said, you can't come in unless you're invited. And they haven't done it since.
So it works.
Yeah.
So these experiences, your personal experiences, as well as others that you've talked to, are you going to put those into the book?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm going to put in, because it all connects with. I want to bring this alive to people because, one of the things that Victorian writers said was, well, the Pixies have gone away now. They're not. That's it. Yes. They're gone. But I mean, that's what I love about Joe's project, Modern Fairy Sightings as well, is that no, these beings are very present, and they, some of them want us to connect with us, to connect with them, because you know, for some reason they want their presence known. Others don't, which is fair enough. But I feel like, yeah, it's time for people to realize that there's more going on than, you know, and fairies aren't just, you know, these little twinkly things in
yeah, no, of course. So this is going to be a very unfair question, and it will need several hours to actually answer this, which obviously we don't have. But what do you think they are? Do you think, you know, let's narrow that down a bit. Do you think fairies, pixies, whatever you want to call them, are existing in their own standalone reality and interacting with our reality, or do you think they're lodged in human consciousness? Sorry, that's a massive
and 7 minutes to answer that. There you go, Claire. Just to put the pressure on you.
Sorry.
Gosh, that's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a completely unfair question.
Yeah, it was totally unfair, Neil. I think I sprung that one on you.
I've never seen a fairy how I expected a fairy to be. So I've never seen, you know, like some people, which is fair enough, describe the typical gnome, you know, with the little pointy hats, or pixies with pointy hats. I don't see them like that. When I see them sort of psychically or whatever, they're quite more like I've heard you saying, Neil, like the Brian Froud.
The gnarly. They're gnarly, yeah.
Gnarly. And so like I quite often see them, you know, they're melded as part of nature, and they look like the trees and the rocks and the, you know, whatever thing in nature they're part of. You know, they're not attractive and
so that sounds more like the, you know, the idea that they're nature spirits, and that they're embedded in nature, and maybe if we're in the right state of consciousness, as I usually say, we can tune into them and they're always there. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, I think so. And the thing is, there's also crossovers with other things. I think all these things are related, you know, because you've got the orbs and the, you know, the light anomalies. I mean, I'm going to talk about this in my book, you know, the hearing sounds. You know, it's interesting to capture that EVP. You know, I quite often hear, not often, it's every now and again, I don't hear it all the time. I'll hear music and, you know, hum to copy it and record it. So to capture an EVP of somebody actually humming, and I think, well, I've been hearing that. Is that something to do with my energy that I'm sending out, or is it?
It's an age-old question, isn't it, about why certain people have these experiences and other people don't have these experiences. It's that, you know, why some people are, you know, their antennae is, you know, clearer to these kind of things. We're counting down. We've got 4 minutes. No, please don't apologize. It's super interesting. We need to squeeze in things like how people can find you, when the book's going to be out, all those nitty-gritties.
So, book, I'm finishing editing this summer. I'd like to get it out early next year. I've got my website, which I also publish my podcast episodes on, which is Fairy Whisperer, and fairy is the old-fashioned way, FAERY Whisperer. .co.uk. Fairy Whispering Group, Facebook. I've also got YouTube channel, but I can send you my links
And I will drop them down below so people can. I know I say this, and sometimes I get bamboozled and don't put them in, but I will endeavour to put them in there. And briefly, we were chatting just before we came on to record about you're a clairaudient, and I know that aspect will fascinate a whole multitude of viewers on here about, you know, the ability to psychically hear, you know, from spirits and energies. And Neil and I had discussed right at the very beginning of this new series that we really wanted to do a specific thing about music, fairy music, and how we hear the fairies, and what that means, and like you say about being fairy led by giggling and laughter, or being enchanted by music. So we are going to have you back on, Claire. I kind of bamboozled you into that one before we came on.
I don't mind, yeah.
But I'd love to have just a whole kind of 40 minutes talking about that phenomena, because I think that would be really super interesting. We are running out of time. I know our viewers have complained quite a bit about the fact that we're having to cut things short. We're doing that. I'm going to put my hands up and say that both Neil and myself are as poor as church mice. So paying out for something like Zoom or whatever we're working towards it, guys. We want people on longer.
We do this for love, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
This is it. I do what I do for love, you know. So,
yeah. And the thing is, you can't not, if you know, you're obviously the same ilk as myself and Neil, if we're constantly curious about trying to find the answers to a million questions that open up a million questions within this subject. It's just it rolls on and on and on and on and on. So you know, you can't help but be curious and excited and passionate.
Oh, I just find it, so fascinating.
Me too.
This whole thing. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Anything you'd like to add, Neil, before we go? We've got like 1 minute.
Pixie, fairy. Are they the same thing?
Oh, in 1 minute. Don't do this to Claire. No, we'll get Claire back.
That's an easy one.
I see them as part of the whole fairy.
Exactly. See? Easy one.
Yeah.
Easy one. They are the same thing. It's just a regional term for call them fairies, call them pixies. They're the same.
Pixies, yeah.
Okay, guys, I think 30 seconds. Claire, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you again.
Chatting
Brilliant.
to you.
Thank you, Claire.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Kate.